Amen. Any changes to the agenda?
Yeah, I've got one addition to the agenda, and let me just kind of go to the title of it since I got to write it down before we came here. Under new business, I would like to include one item, and this really kind of goes with the Sprouse SUP if the board approves it. There's an item under new business called revocation of special use permit SUP 0604. So again, there's an SUP on the property. So if the board approves the one this evening, we would just want to, for clarity, just to kind of clean that up and show that the other one's not still outstanding. So that's all that I have.
All right.
I move that we adopt the agenda with the changes noted.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Hodge, seconded by Mr. Goode. All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, 5-0. County Administrator's
All
report.
right, I got a few things to report. So one, want to welcome Kirby Bond. Actually, welcome back, Kirby Bond. She was with Social Services before, and she's back working in the Commonwealth Attorney's Office as a victim witness manager, and she started May 12th, and glad to have her back in the county. The hazardous waste event was held on April 26th. Again, it's an annual tire collection and a biannual hazardous waste collection. So tires were collected from 9 to 11 a.m. and they filled one whole trailer. Special thanks to Wayne Bates, Mike Sharp, and Chris Payne from Public Works for their help, along with Brendan Krett and Matt Stansel from Parks and Rec, who assisted in those efforts. And then the hazardous waste collection was from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. The county collected, or the vendor that we use collected 21,405 pounds of hazardous waste, totaling $15,401. Again, we are under budget of what we had in there, but again, it's great to get that hazardous waste out of people's garages and specifically not in the sides of the roads and stuff. So glad for that. And thanks to Parks and Rec and their staff for making the event run smoothly. The 2025 May Carnival was held May 10th through the 7th through the 10th. The county's portion of Carnival revenue received was just slightly below 13,000. 800 of that was for games. Also that same day was our first group at the Grove of the season, and that was held on May 10th from 4 to 7. We actually had a really good attendance. We had 425 in attendance this year, which is probably at least about 100 more than we had last year. So it's, picking up some momentum and people are coming out to it. Mama Tried was the musical group, and Fluvanna Youth Baseball sponsored the beer garden. We also had Simply Trending and Montero Crepes as the food trucks. The next Groovin' at the Grove is June 14th, and that's following Art in the Park at Pleasant Grove Park from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Musical guests for that Groovin' at the Grove will be the Jen Tall Band. That's from 5 to 7 p.m. with FLDP sponsoring the beer garden from 4 to 7, and DeMary's and Barista Baker will be the food trucks. And I think we have one more truck. We may have one more food truck for that as well too. And just some upcoming regular meetings. June 4th, we have a 5 p.m. regular meeting here. June 18th, we have a 6 p.m. regular meeting here. And then remember, for July, we only have one meeting for the month of July. So that'll be July 2nd. And that meeting really serves as kind of a double meeting, so to speak. So in addition to having kind of regular meeting business, we will also have public hearing items as well on July 2nd. But I'd happy to answer any questions from the board.
Two things real quick. First, the June 4th meeting, I will be out of the state, so I will try to do that remotely. And second,
You'll be on a cruise ship, won't you?
I will.
I knew it.
We finally had our last day today and had a great day. And anyway, I could go a long time on that, but second thing, Sunday, we were going to try and do a river cleanup like we did a few years back, where we got like 165 tires out of the Rivanna, but the water is still up somewhat and we're calling for more rain. So they have pushed that back, and they're going to look at trying to do a date in July. I could look up my email, but I think it's the 19th of July, and then another date in August. If anybody's interested in helping, the section that we're going to try to focus on is from Red Bank Lane towards Columbia,
Okay.
because we went from Palmyra almost to Red Bank Lane the last time.
Yeah, if you want to give me that information.
I'll try to
from
get that. I'll
volunteers, we can
I'll-
definitely put something
I'll
out
shoot
on
you
Facebook.
that, email,
Okay.
but it's just the Ravenna,
Is it Rivanna River Basin? Or-
one of them.
Okay.
I have to look into this email, but, it's one of the Ravenna groups,
Okay.
and they reached out 2 years ago or 3 years ago. And we've been rained out the last 2 years. And water's, or not rained out, but watered out, because water was too low. We tried to do it in September. So we're trying to move it forward, so we got water in the river. Because I'm telling you, when you have 17 tires in a canoe with a person that weighs about 225, that's a big load.
Right.
All right, I'm sorry, yeah. I just
No,
wanted to
good,
bring
thank
those
you.
two things up.
We'll now open the first round of public comment. If you're speaking to something that's in the public hearing, please save that until then. Otherwise, please address the board and keep it 5 minutes.
Don Raynard, 3531 Union Mills Road. I've got two things. First is, I'd like to speak in support of SVP 2501, Sprout Specialty Retail Store. Most of us that, buy.
We actually can't talk about
That-
it.
that-
You have to wait to the public hearing portion. to
Yeah,
talk
yeah,
about it.
This is a public hearing.
No, this is
No,
public
no.
comments.
Okay, well,
comment.
I'll talk about that one later on then.
Yep.
All right, but, second thing is, we normally bring up the land use and the review of land use situation here in Fluvanna. And actually, if you look at Virginia law, Title 15-2-400, the Board of Supervisors is granted the authority in every county in Virginia, state law, to review any and all financial transactions that occur within the county.
Excuse me.
There's been some discussion that the board couldn't look at that because it was constitutional officers that run those departments. That's not the case. You're actually encouraged by Virginia law to do so. And I can't stress enough how much money we're leaving on the table by not doing that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Patty Raynard, 3531 Union Mills Road. And of course, I'm here to echo what Don just said, and also just to add a little bit to that. I'm just not sure I understand why the Board of Supervisors does not want to ensure accuracy and fair taxation for all of the taxpayers in this county. I mean, to me, that should be like the top priority for this county, since the majority of the money that funds the schools and, sheriff's department and everything else has to come from taxpayers. And since we have very little commercial tax base, then we really need to be accurate with the land use. So I guess I'm just really confused, and I don't understand why, because, we're just going in a circle. We get told that, elected officials, you can't question it, but that's not true. The Board of Supervisors actually has all of the authority to question. So my request is that the Board of Supervisors ask for and conduct an audit of all land use in the county to ensure the accuracy and also to ensure the fair taxation across the board for all taxpayers. I'm also still requesting a public forum where people can actually come and have a discussion, ask questions, and get answers. I'm still waiting for that. That hasn't happened yet either. And as Don said, there is laws 15-2-400 that states exactly what we just said about the taxes and the fair taxation across the board. So I guess, when we just keep hitting the same resistance, it leads one to believe, is there just some big cover up in this county when it comes to land use? That we do not want people to know. I would like to have answers, and I can't ask questions and get answers here. So I need some sort of a public forum, but I would also like I said, to make the public request here that there's an audit, a complete audit of the financials. And to find out why we don't have fair taxation for all taxpayers in the county. I have some other things to talk about, but I'll do that in the second round of public comment. There is one other thing, you know, it seems like we can have where we have public hearing to enact county codes. So I would like for us to enact a county code for auditing the financials here. I mean, we seem to be able to, you know, create, you know, these public hearing county codes for just about everything else. So I don't understand why we haven't done that. So I would also like to request that be done as well.
Anybody else? Seeing none, we will move on to action matters. Item A, dissolution of the Economic Development and Tourism Advisory Council, EdTech. Mr. Witt.
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the board. So EdTech was created in 2016, and it was created to advise Fluvanna County on matters related to economic development and tourism. And it has contributed greatly to the county, promoting the county as a business and tourism destination and supporting business retention and advocating for community events and marketing. Next slide. So looking at the future needs of the county, as the county's strategic priorities evolve and the tourism sector is becoming more central, the existing EdTech structure has become too broad to address the tourism needs. So the dual focus on both economic development and tourism has led to less attention and less effectiveness on advancing tourism initiatives. So what we're proposing is a more focused advisory structure, which would be called the Tourism Advisory Committee, which would better serve its function by concentrating on tourism-related matters. And this would advise county leadership on tourism marketing, project planning, and long-range goals. So what we're proposing is a resolution to dissolve EdTech. And basically right now, the EdTech member terms expire June 2025. So we would propose that the resolution would dissolve EdTech effective May 31st of this year. And this would allow orderly conclusion to the existing structure and then help transition to the more focused body called TAC. So basically what we do is we bring the bylaws for the creation of the Tourism Advisory Committee at the June meeting for review and approval by the board. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
And then also to Ms. Schmeck and Mr. Spitzer, again, from Economic Development and Parks and Rec, they are kind of the staff leads kind of sitting on that current EdTech right now.
Thoughts, questions?
Do y'all have anything to offer?
I think it would be a good thing. I'm on there right now, and I think having a more focused and a directed approach to generate the type of business and tourism that we need to generate tax revenue, we need to have a clear focus on there. And I've asked on several events since I started, whatever the project was, and how's this bring revenue or tourists into the thing? And it wasn't really clear. And I never got a really good answer on that, which that should be the focus. If you're growing economic development or growing tourism, that should be your focus. And everything should support that goal. So I think having a more focused thing would be good, and having industry experts appointed to it, people in that field. Going forward.
Anything else? All right, we'll make a motion.
I move the Board of Supervisors approve the resolution to dissolve the Economic Development and Tourism Advisory Council.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Hodge, seconded by Mr. O'Brien. All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, 5-0. Item B, authorization to advertise for a public hearing, an ordinance amendment to amend 20-13-3, 20-13-5, 20-13-6, 20-13-7, 20-13-10, and 20-13-11, and acting 20-13-15 regarding the food and beverage tax. Mr. Whitten.
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the board. So the board did adopt the food and beverage tax on March 19th. And the 4% tax goes into effect August 1st. So after meeting with the treasurer and commissioner of revenue, certain amendments have been requested to the tax as we go through the process of sending out the applications to the different vendors and working on the process for remitting that tax to the treasurer. So I'll go to the proposed amendments. One of the amendments, actually, this came from the county administrator, and we realized that we really need a policy that will dictate how the 50% revenue will be used for public school construction. And so the policy is in your packet, and that goes into a little more detail about specifically what kind of projects for the public schools qualify for the use of the 50%. So we're getting, more larger construction projects rather than that, benefit the education, benefit the students rather than smaller projects.
And
add to that.
well, just as Mr. Whitten kind of goes through the meal sack portion, I can bring up the policy piece of school construction policy piece, just to make sure that it's what the board anticipated with kind of providing meal sacks to that. So I'll bring that up after Mr. Whitten's done with this.
And the other thing we realized is, most of the vendors are going to be paying remitting the meals tax by credit card. And right now the county charges a 3% credit card fee, which is the amount the county has to pay to the credit card companies. And we really don't want to be taxing the vendors as well. So what we're proposing is that, and this is common in other localities, that sellers can deduct 3% of the amount owed, not to exceed $100, to compensate for the collection of the tax and the reporting of the tax. So this would cover basically if they pay by credit card, or also just their administrative fees of processing this meals tax on a monthly basis.
And just for clarity, remember, they're paying a 4% tax on gross receipts. The 3% would be 3% of the tax that they're paying. It's not like we're taking away, it's not like we're only getting 1% of the gross receipts or the tax on that.
And then also as a point of clarity, that there's an exemption in the food and beverage tax state code section for farmers markets, but this would just clarify that mobile food trucks still have to collect the food and beverage tax even if they're at a farmers market. So like farmers market over by Ace Hardware, farmers market vendors there will not be collecting the meals tax when they're selling like baked goods and such. But if food trucks are there, then they would be collecting the meals tax. Next slide. So after talking to the Commissioner of Revenue and Treasurer, we kind of went through and the ordinance to discuss the different duties. And so basically we clarified that the Commissioner of Revenue will be sending out the application form and the remittance form to the sellers. So basically his office will find all the restaurants, food trucks in the county, and he'll make sure that that form is sent out. And the remittance form that the sellers fill out, they'll send that form to the sellers as well. And then the seller will deliver the remittance form to the treasurer along with the tax included. So on a monthly basis, they'll send that remittance form that shows their gross receipts for meals, and then, the 4%. And then if the board does adopt the 3% back to the seller, then they would show that on the little spreadsheet as well, that deduction. And then they come up with the final amount that's turned over to the treasurer. We also clarified that both the treasurer and the Commissioner of Revenue would have the authority to examine the records of the seller. Obviously, they have different enforcement duties, but they both have authority under state code to examine records of sellers. So the Commissioner of Revenue would ascertain the name of every seller responsible for the tax. The treasurer would be the one that would be proceeding against the seller, most likely with my assistance. Basically, if someone is not turning over the tax, or they're not turning over the full amount, and then we would, take that seller to court for not turning over the tax, because basically it's a tax they're holding in trust for the county. So the public hearing would be held June 18th, and the ordinance would still go into effect August 1st. I have sent all the changes to the Commissioner of Revenue and the Treasurer, and I believe they're both here tonight. They have reviewed all the changes, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I had a question. This was brought up. I can't remember where it was. It may have been one of the gas stations I was in. So food and beverage, obviously your mind goes on almost immediately to restaurants, but also we've had conversations about EWs, things like that. So if someone were to buy a bottled Mountain Dew at a gas station, would that count towards the beverage?
Yeah, that'd just be sales tax. You'd have to be like, if I went and bought a sub at EW's,
Uh,
that would be paying the meals tax on that.
on,
On the sub that
On
they
the sub.
prepare.
right.
Yeah.
So the beverage is, what beverage piece is part of the tax? If it's on the bill with
If
food?
it's a sealed beverage, you don't pay a meals
Okay.
tax on a sealed beverage.
Okay, gotcha.
What if it's fountain?
Believe fountain, like fountain drinks, milkshakes, anything like that where they prepare it's in an open container, they'd be collecting the meals tax on that.
Okay.
So a Diet Dr. Pepper in a bottle would be like buying Easy Mac. That would not, that's prepackaged, it's considered prepackaged. Okay.
Mhm. Or if you bought a prepackaged sandwich, I know Wawa sells prepackaged sandwiches, you wouldn't be paying meals tax on that
Right.
because they don't prepare it there. It's prepared elsewhere. It's sealed. So it's really something that they prepare there that's not sealed.
Okay.
And then I'll bring up the school construction fund policy too. So I think there's just some questions about what can those funds be used for, and again, so I created the school construction fund policy, I think kind of based upon what I heard from the board and kind of what the intent was. And so again, the purpose of the school construction fund is to provide funding support for the construction of new public school buildings or major expansion and or renovation of existing public school buildings used for K-12 instructional or career and technical education programs. Under the policy, there is hereby created a special fund to be known as the School Construction Fund. 50% of the revenues collected from the county's food and beverage tax shall be allocated to that fund. Gifts and donations through the Fluvanna County Voluntary Contributions Program may also be allocated to the School Construction Fund, which allows individuals the opportunity to directly support a program most important to them. And then funds accumulated for school construction are designated for new public school buildings or for major expansion and or renovation of existing public school buildings. And then interest earned on monies in the fund shall remain in the fund and be credited to it. And then it just kind of talks about procedures for submittals and stuff like that. So again, what I think I heard the board say was, as far as like new students or building a new school, I didn't necessarily think I heard, let's just say we wanted to build a new ball field or athletic facilities or things like that. I guess unless it was specifically a new gymnasium would probably qualify, since that's part of the
That
instructional.
would be a major renovation.
Right.
wouldn't it?
So shouldn't we define major?
We could, I mean, we could get a little more specific. Yeah, we could, I mean, we could put a dollar amount to it if.
My understanding was that, it was new school construction and maybe Mr. Sheridan, maybe what stands out from me was this was your idea, and I don't want to clarify me if I'm wrong, not trying to re-put words in your mouth, but you brought up several times about down the road, maybe sooner rather than later, new elementary school is going to be needed. And my understanding, and granted, I didn't vote for this when it was up, but my understanding was that it would be new school construction. And had there been a secondary vote on where that second 2% was, I probably would have wanted more clarity on whether it was just new construction, because that was something I supported within it, even though I didn't vote for it, was setting aside, if we're gonna have it, was setting aside. My thought was that it was more sort of new construction, thinking out into the not so distant, or I mean, far out, but not tomorrow, but maybe 5-10 years down the road. That was my understanding of the conversation.
And when I did this, and when I came up with this and brought it out, I threw that out there. I said, we could do new school construction, we could do emergency services, maybe new truck, CIP type deal. I don't care. But with the new construction, we're going to need that. And if we set it aside, then we have somewhat of a nest egg, although it won't be a whole big nest egg because we don't have it so much right now. But
Your comment at the time, which I understood, was something to the effect of earn interest instead of pay interest.
correct. So we can have something sitting there to pay cash rather than, because the interest rates aren't quite as good as they were when Mr. O'Brien and I first got here.
Yeah.
When you could make more money with it left in the bank than spending it on interest rates.
everybody talks about the tax burden, and, you know, when we don't plan ahead, we don't plan back in. Little new school at some point in time, in 7 years, take on $7 million in debt or whatever it might be, then that's gonna accelerate the tax rate, so. Like I said, unless you're putting money aside to pay for what's going to happen. You're really not, that's not responsible. So, if you're not putting the money away, then don't be surprised when you go, "Oh, this is a drop in the bucket."
So let's put a number on major and figure out how we qualify what that is.
And I'd leave open the possibility of renovating schools, you know, because you might have a school that's $10-15 million renovation instead of new construction. So I'd leave open that possibility that you do a major renovation as well.
Well, and what I did, so when I included major expansion and or renovation, my thinking was, so what I heard the board say was, you know, we need to plan ahead for more students at some point. Again, I heard new schools, but there may be an opportunity, the high school, for instance, at some point, you know, the way they built it, there's room to expand upon the high school. So let's just say at some point we need to expand. It's not building a new school, but it's expanding the current, you know, capacity of that school. And, you know, you're tying these two buildings together. There may be some renovation or something happening to that wing that it's attached to. So that was kind of my thinking with new school or major expansion and renovation of the existing.
I agree. To me, I wouldn't want to, and I understand where you're going with it on the renovation, but I wouldn't want it to be a renovation that doesn't go to expansion of square footage.
Well, I mean,
square footage.
the one thing I will say against that is we have some older schools that if we do a renovation because there are certain things that are found, I mean, that's the only other thing that there might be. Well, whichever, you're renovating it, you're making it new. I'm not even trying to have an argument.
No, saying, and that's, it should be item, CIP.
Correct.
Mhm.
Well, this is gonna be CIP stuff. New school would be CIP stuff.
It's
Be more,
much bigger.
yeah.
Yeah, you know, HVAC. or something.
Well, I was thinking about the bathrooms at Central.
But
I agree that's not what I felt we.
Oh,
No.
that's
asked
fine.
this for.
I mean,
So-
we're just putting money aside that we're
Yeah.
starting to prepare.
So, I mean, we were talking about like CIP, when there's a difference in the CIP. So some of it you're gonna fund out of your general fund and reserves. But new construction, you never fund that out of general fund and reserves. You're gonna take a loan. And the
Unless you have
purpose of this is,
construction
Most
fund.
times, no, if you got the money sitting there, you can absolutely fund it out of fund balance.
yeah, but there was a set amount you have to keep in there. And
12
you-
million,
Yeah, and then you want to have a little bit extra.
absolutely.
your
But I'm
bets.
saying if we've got a general fund that has enough money in it to cover a $10 million bill,
The challenge becomes, to your point. And the challenge becomes that if we had a $60 million general fund, taxpayers would say, why are you holding back all this money, right? And even if we say, well, we're holding it back because we're gonna build a new school, you know, some board at some point in time will say, well, we got this big, you know, general fund here, we can go ahead and lower the tax rate.
And
If
that
we
came
set
up.
aside the money and we dedicate it for a specific purpose, that money is restricted. So you can't do that, so I think that's kind of the difference.
And I think there was a question asked last year, why don't we just pay down the debt? And it was because we were making more interest on what we had than what we were paying. So it made no sense to do that
Yeah, plus,
financially.
I mean,
we don't have any of our debt at 7%.
all of our interests, I mean, all of the debt we have, I mean, I think we've got one or two that are getting ready to fall off within the next year or two that are like in the low 4% range, but everything is,
They're the highest.
I think 2.5 probably and lower.
Load factor, inflation, you know, that's in the favor at our versus debt holder.
Mhm.
It's no hurry to take that on.
So I think we're all agreeing
Yeah,
that we need to figure out what our parameters are of what's a major.
$10 million.
I could go with that.
anything under 10 million, we should be able to pay for
Mhm.
out of cash. If we had to.
Yeah.
It's maybe price about 10 million.
And ultimately, it would, you mentioned restrictive. Is that restrictive of if something comes up, it's over 10 million, it's not new school construction, the board determines that money's used there, or are we essentially given discretion, financial discretion to have these?
Well, I mean, so I mean, again, the procedures are, I mean, the request would come, a school construction fund request would come formally, submitted formally from Fluvanna County Public Schools to myself via the director of finance. And then we would review the request and make recommendations for approval, this, like we do for CRMs. And then, again, like we do for CRMs, that would come forward to the board for their review and action. I mean, so if you wanted to say, you know, I think what we could do is under the policy section, you know, we could add somewhere in there that the minimum request for school construction funds would need to be, you know, if you want to say $10 million, if that's the number, or, now the only thing with using a high amount, I think it's feasible that you could potentially get into a spot where maybe it would be less than 10 million if you had to do an expansion or something like that. Maybe not so much in today's construction environment, but
And I'm an optimist.
yeah.
I'm a glass half full kind of person. We're talking about this amount of money. None of us will be alive when $10 million is in that account. I'm not being pessimistic. We're talking about $100,000 a year going into this account.
Because it may be one of these things too, that down the road, we get to a point, let's just say, for instance, we had $5 million in the account and say, you know, there's some new construction that needs to happen. It's $10 million. Well, instead of taking out $10 million loan, maybe you take out,
Wow.
either use 5 million in general fund or a $5 million. What's that?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because you're using the money from the construction fund.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the Abrams renovating in is over $10 million.
Yeah. I've
All
never-
told, but we've
yeah.
done a bunch of it, I think, already, correct?
But weren't we saying, it sounded like to me, we were saying that renovation doesn't necessarily fit into what we're, like I said a bit ago, adding square footage, and I thought I was getting affirmations. A renovation could be those bathrooms. That's a remodel. A renovation and a remodel, I'd challenge anybody to tell me the difference between the two. And we're talking about a major building or expansion.
We could say major expansion, because we have and or renovation. We can just say major expansion and renovation.
But I don't, meaning it'd all be one.
Yeah, meaning if you'd have to expand a building. Again, the requests come to the board, and so maybe there is a component of the renovation as you're renovating a component of the old building as you're adding on the new building. I'm not saying you're doing the whole building, but it may be a wing of the building as you're connecting something.
So it sounds like not dropping, but you're concerned with the word renovation.
I don't know. I mean, to me, that would be a part of an expansion.
Right, that's
I
what
mean,
I'm
you gotta tear the wall. If you're gonna add a piece to the side of the wall, you gotta tear the wall out that's there. Meaning if you're gonna extend, another wing. So to me, why don't we just take it out?
We could get rid of and or renovation. We just say or major expansion of existing public school
Yeah.
buildings.
I'm good with that.
And $10 million?
10 million, y'all good with that?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Just in the motion, we can just reflect that in the motion to change.
Yep. So you got two motions. One is regarding the amendments. Motion number one is regarding the amendments to the food and beverage tax. And then motion two is the school construction fund.
Before we say anything else, I do have to give one shout out, because we talked about it, not the last meeting, but I think it was 2 meetings ago, to Ms. Rittenhouse. It was very nice to look at the amount of interest. We've just had this long conversation that we're making on our money that we have in the bank. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Dan, real quick before we move on these, there's been discussion about some food trucks at planning commission meetings. Is there anything we need to have a discussion about with regard to that tonight, or there still needs to be action to come from that?
Yeah, that's still at the planning level.
Okay.
I mean, planning still talking about by right, no application
Okay.
fee, and that's still where planning commission is right now. So that really, Basically, every food truck that comes into the county, whether it be Groove into the Grove, the county fair, or permit food trucks, will have to collect the meals tax after
Mhm.
August 1st.
I move that the Board of Supervisors advertise amendments to the county code related to the food and beverage tax by amending subsection 20-13-3, 20-13-5, 20-13-6, 20-13-7, 20-13-10, and 20-13-11, and enacting subsection 20-13-15 for a public hearing to be held June the 18th, 2025.
Motion made by Mr. Sheridan, second by Mr. O'Brien, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, 5-0.
And so what do we need from this? Strike the word renovation?
I think you just say, strike the word, it was
Renovation.
renovation out of that, and then adding a $10 million kind of minimum threshold.
Threshold.
I move that the Board of Supervisors approve the school construction fund policy 13.3.
Three.
By,
3.13,
sorry,
dyslexic.
3.13. And by striking the word words and or renovation and setting a $10 million threshold on the expansion piece.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Goode, seconded by Mr. Hodge, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, 5-0.
Sorry.
Moving on to item C, reappropriation of CIP FY 25 Fluvanna Middle School track project funding, Mr. Striblin.
Good evening, everyone. How are you all?
And invited guests.
Absolutely.
Mr. Hampshire.
Thank you for the opportunity to be able to come back and present for this request. I do want to thank you. Not sure if you were able to see the pictures of the track that we were able to do earlier this year. Thank you very much. Great project, not only for the school system, but also for the community. And I will tell you, you may not believe me, but it was not strategic in terms of the invite that you received this afternoon for the regionals. That was not strategic. It was ironic, but not strategic. I hope you all can come next week. I also want to let everybody know that the middle school, since having the track completed, has hosted 3 different events with 4 or 5 different divisions. We also hosted one invitational that hosted 10 different divisions from the state, so school systems. So we are very appreciative of that. The board had requested we bring back some updated quotes with regards to the request to move funding that was originated and initiated for the FMS track project to a more global FMS track project stadium. I believe it's approximately $149,000 that we saved by adjusting and pivoting during the initial construction by doing a different process that allowed us to save $150,000. So start with phase 1. Now, as we started
Before you go, I'm sorry.
Yes.
What was a different process?
It's called reclamation. So it was budgeted for about, I don't know the exact price, but I know that we saved 150, let's say $800,000 in stone, approximately $800,000 in stone.
Okay.
So instead of using the stone, what we did is they came in with a machine. And you see them on projects on the highway and the interstate, and they basically grind it up like a tiller. So they use what is already there. They didn't, when we first did the project, that wasn't an option based on the time frame. When they brought it to us, it seemed too good to be true at that particular point in time, but it's worked out very well. So we used the material that we already had there, then they came up and skimmed it, put a layer of concrete and asphalt on top, and that we didn't have to use the stone that we had budgeted.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Absolutely. So when we first did this, we wanted to make sure that we took care of, and you find things out as you move along. The track was in great shape. We do have classes that go down there every day. And we found that there were rocks getting up on the track. That's one of the things we have to maintain the track. So we were going to do a lip or an apron, which you may call it. Most people you have a garage, you have an apron that comes off your garage that goes down. It keeps material debris out of your garage. That's one of the goals of it. So that was our first initial project that we needed to do. As we started to review the area, there were some other areas, parking lot from where construction had taken place. We looked at the roadway. A school board member had brought up on a site visit there that we should look at doing that. So we had 3 different projects that we came to you with, starting with the paving. When we did this, we did have to go back. We completed a bleacher inspection for safety and ADA. So there are 2 different types of bleacher inspections. Safety and ADA, and then mechanical and structural. So that was $1,500. Basically, they came back with us with 3 different options. One was for repairs, which was $200,000. One was for reduced replacement, which was $300,000. And then completely to do it again, the same way, mirrored, with all the updates, 1.5 million. So we had to pivot again once we got that information. At the same time, Mr. Hampshire and his team do an excellent job. He was on site with this. We had a mechanical and structural inspection of it. Basically underneath, on top, it's aluminum and metal. The frame steel. Basically, the recommendation we received from them were that no more than 1 class on that particular set of bleachers at a time. We cannot get estimates until it's about $10,000 to get engineered drawings. We have to pay that $10,000, get those drawings, then go out to contractors to get a bid. So we kind of put a halt on that as well. So when we pivoted, we'd like to use the funding in this manner, if it is reappropriated. Take care of the parking lot patch and the edge of the track. That was in the initial request.
And that's the 38,000 to the left there on the screen.
Well, yes, we broke it down because there's one move that we have to make, or we should make. We broke the paving project up into 3 different projects. That was the $7,500. We would recommend that if the board did reappropriate those funds, that we would go in and replace the fencing and gate at the beginning. That was part of the project, the overall project. That is to replace after many years. We also had some vandalism 3 or 4 years ago that affected the fence. And if we update it, we'll also update it with a gate opening, but also an individual opening that many of them have, where the community can use for that. The reason that we want to do that first before we go in and pave the road and then pave in front of we don't want to pave, then put the fence back in. So we'd rather do the fence, then pave. So that's one caveat. Then after that, we also found some of the handrails going up to the restrooms on the backside of the facility. They need to be replaced. It's a safety and an ADA issue. That would be phase 2. Phase 3, quite honestly, it's so new, we'd have to figure out what we're going to do with the bleachers. We've done some initial investigating, and anywhere from, you have to have pads. So if you do, let's say you do 2 pads, 4 pads would be 32,000. Bleachers, if you're looking at 4, you're looking at anywhere between 50 and 100,000, and then installation would be another price on top of that. We do not have an estimate for that right now. We just don't have enough information with regards to that. That is on top of our initial request. So that's phase 3. That's a pretty big part of it, and I apologize for not having that, but that's just not from a time frame perspective. Phase 3A, which I call 3A, is still part of the original request. Storage building. We have a storage building that's been there. It's dilapidated. We need a roof on it. We need the interior, roof, side, trim, windows. we'd use 12,000, 3,500 for the doors. And then the interior and ceiling repairs would add another 4,500 to that. And I hope that I'm moving down. We tried to prioritize. What we were trying to do is we put it in the agenda, but I'm trying to prioritize what our projects would be and where the majority of that money, the reappropriated funding, would go to. We put a phase 4 for the concession stand, along with the cameras and Wi-Fi. If we are gonna have, we have a meeting with Baycorp, who's our insurance provider, next week, with regards to interventions that we should initiate prior to letting, the community use our facilities, use their facilities, our facilities, the school. But we're also working with a security grant to update our cameras and Wi-Fi just from an insurance and safety perspective as well. I know I gave a lot of information. What questions do you all have with regards to the request, the initial request for the reappropriation of the funding?
Are you, maybe I misunderstood you. Are you hoping for that 149 to fund all of that? Or you're saying, there are things in here that weren't in the last time you were here. And when we said, let's look at what's ADA, I thought we were coming back to see a reduced list. And it seems like we're talking about a whole lot of, is that?
The
right?
only new, there were ADA that we needed to figure out. When we went into that, that's where the bleacher inspections came in.
Yeah.
So that increased the price. The only new were from the bleacher standpoint, so you can kind of look at that as a separate project, unfortunately. But besides the handrails, which we were looking at anyway, and then the fencing, we didn't necessarily have a quote for that either, but I'm not sure which ones.
What were you saying about the roof metal? Was that on the?
Here, let me go back to, so this was the original request here. So I think the top items, the 75,
Those are the
17,
paving.
5 and 13, those are the amounts they had last time. And then there was the amounts at the bottom of this chart, additional projects that they didn't have.
Storage building,
Yeah.
roofing, so storage building.
Oh, I got you. Okay.
And then the bleacher inspection was part of that. Right now, on a positive note, if we do move forward, it looks like we don't have any options but to move forward with some type of alternative bleachers. There wouldn't be a press box. Our scoreboard, we need a couple different electrical, maybe a transmitter and the actual box. Concession stand and Wi-Fi are on phase 4. Your original question, are we hoping to get it all done? That would be very optimistic.
Yeah.
Since finding out the bleachers may need to be replaced. Could we have done all of these projects with that? Absolutely, and then probably had some to give back to the county. However, I don't know that we'll be able to get it all done for 149. Are we gonna try? Absolutely. Absolutely.
At the middle school, the bleachers, I mean, if they're eventually replaced, would they need to be like for like? I mean, that was an old high school football stadium.
I optimally love it. It was state of the art in 76, right? But right now, I don't necessarily think that we need that size.
That's what I mean, size, yeah.
I don't think so. Mr. Hampshire went over, we were estimating a 25 by 25. If you've been to the baseball field, bleachers at the baseball field that are on both sides, 2 to 4 of those, and they run anywhere between 16 and 25,000 per. That's the bleachers, not to put them together. Then you have to add on the pads, which are another 10 to 12,000 concrete if you've worked with concrete recently. But no, we not like to like, not married. No, sir. Our only concern with that, and I'll just tell you that as a fan, if you notice how our bleachers are probably 5 feet above from an eye level, 4 to 5
Well, the
feet.
seats are about 5 feet.
Correct.
The bleachers themselves, because I got to bend way over if I try to crawl under them, about 3 and a half.
So think about going up 4 or 5 steps you're able to see the field at this level. We would not raise the pads up. That's the only downfall to that. But we're hosting track events, classes go there.
The biggest thing is for track. We're not playing football there right now. We're not playing lacrosse. Community plays a youth football there,
Yes,
but it's not, you're not looking over top 6'5" varsity players.
correct.
But I'm telling you guys, I have spent a lot of time down there this spring, and I've told you this before. It scares me to death when I walk out there and there are rocks that are 2 inches big around laying in the middle of the track. And the gravel is at the same height as the track, and I have probably swept the track off with a push broom 25 times. And I walk around whenever we're out there continuously and just pick up rocks and throw them across the fence. That stuff needs to be paved.
Been you concerned that the inspections and the engineering and so on were not appropriate for?
Well, yeah, I mean, from a CIP project, just on a onesie twosie, but they've already funded the inspections,
Yeah.
from what I understand, right?
We can, it is.
You're looking for that to be reimbursed.
Well, I don't think we could be reimbursed from CRM.
Yeah.
We have not remitted payment on that yet, but we are, if our plan was to use the reappropriated funding, but if that doesn't work, we have to pay for it, so we're gonna pay for it. We'd like to use the reappropriated funds.
And the other thing I want to make sure I say again is I personally agreed to this as long as we agreed that it was going to be open to the public. And we've got to get that stuff taken care of to have our public somewhere where they can walk.
Correct, and we're meeting actually with Baycorp member John Hollins, I believe, next week, and Chris Ballinger is the POC that we work with. That is from a safety perspective and a liability perspective, just to make sure. And then we've spoken with many different schools and divisions with regards to how Western Louisa, how they keep their tracks open. Obviously, we'll have some parameters that will have to be followed by the community members, but this has been something we've wanted for probably 5 or 10 years to be a partner.
So we didn't answer that I was just
I
talking
mean,
about.
can you do the inspection? I mean, you could. I mean, to me, that isn't generally a CIP item. That's
Yeah.
How much is it?
1,500.
Yeah. Well,
What
there's-
about the
well, there's
plans?
two. There's 4,000 for the mechanical and structural, and it looks like for the safety and ADA was 1,500.
But they've already been completed?
Yeah, they already did it.
Okay.
We had to move forward.
Yeah. So, are we gotta go at 7, right? Do we need to?
It's a request, I mean.
No.
Reduce the amount of.
Yeah,
And quite frankly, let me just add one thing. They could always submit a CRM request for those two items.
Absolutely.
my only concern, and I think we all agreed when this originally came up that we were all pretty much okay with the 38,000 that was originally listed there. My only concern is that there seems to be a little bit up in the air about the bleachers, and I would hesitate to fund something that we don't really know what we're getting into, or what, there doesn't seem to be, I want to say not a plan. I know that you have some ideas of some things you want to do, and I have a hard time just kind of saying, hey, let's do the whole 149 when, again, I got an idea and a feel. Am I wrong in saying that you don't 100% really, a lot of the things here, you're like, this is what we want to do, this is what we need to do. I don't get that feeling for the bleachers necessarily.
It's so new.
Yeah.
It was surprising.
Yeah.
So I would say that we're solid on all the others, yes.
Okay.
I thought, I'm sorry. I thought-
Oh, no, go
I
ahead.
thought when we left the last time, we were generally, the reason we asked about the pieces that were ADA was we were generally speaking of addressing ADA and gravel getting on the track. But that was our goal, to come back and discuss how do we do those and not items beyond that.
Well, as was, read stuff and show it last time, I was listed, flashing out of the items.
Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of the ADA stuff was in that 38,000. I think the question was last time was there was some questions about what do these other things cost? And we've got a little bit of that here.
Correct. Yes, sir.
Um,
These are all updated and accurate.
There are some ADA issues with the bleachers, but we still don't know how we want to go about necessarily addressing the bleachers comprehensively. My suggestion would be that we fund the original 38. There's about 17,000 more in there, 12 for the storage building, and 5 for, or about, what is it, 17 for the 2 storage buildings. Wasn't there something for the concession stands as well?
That was 12.
Okay, so my suggestion would be to, and I guess you guys can kind of figure out discretionary how you want to spend it. But my suggestion would be, you've got two $12,000 items there, 38 plus 7 and a $5,000 item, 38 plus 17 is 55, and let them knock some of this stuff out and then come back to us when they have more of a comprehensive plan with the bleachers, and maybe that becomes a CIP item.
It's up to you, concession stand,
No, because he had crowds this year that were several hundred coming to watch track meets.
You've
And
got
our
five-
concession
yeah.
stand still has the same equipment, I believe it had when we were playing.
The spring flag football allowed to use a concession stand, and that's become a huge thing.
Spring, FYF.
Yeah.
I mean, yes.
Yeah.
That's
Do y'all
my
use
understanding, but I can
concession stand
follow
also?
up and make sure.
Y'all?
I'm thinking Danny.
And that's part of the fundraising, for that, for those programs as well. It's a big part of their fundraising.
I suggest we use 65,000.
How much does the scoreboard use? Realistically, if most of your school events are track, I've been to flag football. Niece and nephew played flag football. That's handheld scored. There's 3 games going on at once. I mean, how much is the scoreboard really used?
Not as much as we would like for it to be used because we need a controller.
Okay.
And it's a dated system, but my understanding from talking with AD Carter is that they do have them available. The electricity, the running still works, the lines still work from the plugins, that's my understanding. But again, we're talking about, 50, 45 years.
Daddy helped pay for the scoreboard years ago with the funeral home
I would rather.
and Pepsi.
So great question, and not that you want to hear this, because you can update a scoreboard. I'd rather spend less money to replace a controller than to replace the entire scoreboard. The scoreboard has some historical significance. It still works as long as, because you can get a scoreboard, a brand new scoreboard, you're going to spend a little more.
Oh, yeah.
But I would rather keep what we have and use what we have. Just from
Believe
the
it still
fiscal
works.
So how did we get from the, what did you say to add to the 38
I said add 17 to the 38 for the 2 green 12 and 5 items here.
for the 2 green?
Because they had these in green, I was assuming those
I
were
got you.
priorities.
And just for clarity, that's one storage building. One's for the exterior, one's for the interior, the 12 and the 5.
The storage, that's one storage building.
That's
Well,
one
is the
storage
white
building.
one?
Yes, sir.
And then is
The old
5 the blue one? The old storage buildings down there on the very end?
On the right-hand side, looking at the school, the old concession stand, wasn't it?
Correct, that's the white building.
Mhm.
All right, is that 17 for that? Oh, okay, so both of those are for that building.
We need to wrap this up.
Correct.
Yeah.
75,000. For purposes of the 38,500, 12,500, 12,500, 5,000, 10,000.
Does it have to be itemized for what it's for? No, I didn't think so.
Storage building, school unit, the updated concession stand, and the updated store. That comes out to roughly
77.
5,000. Figure it out.
I mean, I'll second it.
Motion made by Mr. Bryan, seconded by Mr. Sheridan, and I'm gonna open it for discussion.
Discussion, yeah, I mean, I don't know how we went from 55 to 65 to 75 in a matter of,
The concession stand is one that I would say needs to definitely be done. The
Well,
scoreboard.
and what
I
was the
mean, we can
concession
go
stand,
without.
12?
It's 67 to cover all the way to that.
Well, and my point of the 38 was the 12 for, this, again, it's not itemized. My point was there's a couple $12,000 items on there. Plus there's that 5,000 one was they can,
Correct.
at that point with the 55, they can choose where they want to spend it. I'll be honest. I mean, I'd be probably, more on board with the 65 than I would be the 75.
67 would cover
67.
would cover the 5. Or the 38, 12, 12 and 5. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much use we get out of the scoreboard right now because we're not playing football there.
Yeah.
Or lacrosse games.
So with the amendment, I have to have a second, correct?
Second.
Renew the second. So I have a motion made by Mr. O'Brien, seconded by Mr. Sheridan. All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, passes 5-0.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Josh.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
We'll follow up with those
Okay.
items. Thank you again. Board.
Yeah, so it was the 38 and then we
12,
had
12 and 5.
12 and 5.
Yep.
Okay.
So you didn't do
You're
that?
not doing the scoreboard.
No.
Correct.
Okay, or you're not doing, okay,
That's what I
gotcha.
thought.
67 instead of 77.
Okay,
If
I
my
got you.
math
Yep,
was correct.
I see which one.
I'm
Thank you.
tired and it's late.
All right, thank you.
Hearing.
And then we will come back with an updated informational session on the bleachers.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's scary about the bleachers. The 38,000 does all the paving.
All right.
Yes.
Now we're going to public hearing, item D, VDOT secondary 6-year plan. Mr. Scott Thornton.
Man.
Oh, man.
I would have walked.
I know. How y'all doing?
He's already done the work on what it was.
I know. Come here for you to see if the board would adopt the resolution to the secondary 6-year plan. Y'all want me to read through it or
I don't see any need.
I've read it in the packet.
you ready?
Yeah, we don't need.
Yeah, and again, I think the major changes, we changed around the 6-year plan, added Terry's Creek Road to that to make that a more of a priority. Otherwise, everything else was in there as before.
Yes, sir.
South Boston still in there, Old Fork Road and what have you.
All right, I'll make a motion that we accept the resolution for the VDOT secondary 6-year plan, 25 through 25, 26 through 30, 31. And VDOT construction priority list 25, 26 as required by section 33.1-23 and 33.1-23.4 of the 1950 Code of Virginia.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Sheridan, second by Mr. Hodge, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, 5-0. Thank you, sir. It's like, hey, whoa, you go.
Public hearing.
How far do you have to go
You can
again?
sit down there, you have to open up the public hearing.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, that's true. All right, find my script here.
See you.
All right, what we did. Yeah.
I don't know.
Hold on.
Wait, hold on.
We didn't actually do that part.
We have to open the public hearing before.
Did we not? I was gonna-
Yeah.
Why did
We got out of order.
Sorry.
Okay, that's right, before the vote.
Yeah.
You gotta,
We didn't open up the public hearing.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
All right, any questions or anything from the board?
No.
No. All right, we will open up to the public hearing. Please keep your comments to 5 minutes on topic and direct it to the board. Seeing none.
I move to accept the resolution for the VDOT secondary 6-year plan, 2025, 26 through 2023, 2030, 31, and VDOT construction priority list 2025, 26 as required by section 33.1-23 and 33.1-23.4 of the 1950 Code of Virginia.
and seconded again.
Motion made by Mr. Sheridan, seconded by Mr. Hodge. All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye again, 5-0.
Now you can run.
See y'all later.
All right, we will move on to item E, SUP 2501, Sprouse Specialty Retail Store. Mr. Overstreet.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So this is SUP 2501. It's a request for a special use permit in the A1 district for a special retail store to be operated on a 7-acre parcel off North Boston Road. It's in the rural residential planning area. It's in the Columbia Magisterial District. Put a definition up there from our code of a retail specialty store is. Next. General location off North Boston. It's on the south side of North Boston. That's an aerial of the parcel in question. The building is circled. The building that's going to be used, would like to be used, is circled in yellow there. This is a shot of the entrance to the property. North Boston. That's the building that's supposed to be used for the special retail store. All right, and so just a quick history. The board approved an SUP on the property back in May of 2006 to operate a music and dance studio. And that was operated by the Stevens School of Music. They were there until this past January. There were some conditions attached to the approval of the SUP in 2006. There are several conditions: hours of operation 2 to 8. More importantly, the average number of vehicles per day was 25 to 30. On a daily basis, school vehicles leaving in every 30 minutes roughly. They're no longer there. So the applicant, Mr. Sprouse, is proposing to operate a specialty retail store in order to sell sporting goods equipment, specifically hunting type equipment, bows, firearms, and fishing equipment, which he currently does on campus. So he's proposing to move his business here. For 20 years, he's operated the business. So he'll have on the property a enclosed shooting range for arrows, bow and arrows only. No firearms will be allowed. It's one of the conditions we've added. And really, he just uses the bow and arrow range to sight the bugs for his custom clientele. So there's ADA accessible parking already on the site. Should be minimal impact on traffic. He's looking at 5 to 25 customers a day. Most of those are pre-scheduled, so he doesn't get a lot of just drive-by people and stop by the store. It's a special retail store. The use is in accordance with the comprehensive plan, which says that the character of the established community should not be adversely affected on the neighborhood property, but some commercial services may be considered designed and arranged to complement the rural character of the area, which we believe this will do. The TRC review meeting was held. There weren't too many comments. Fire department wanted to make sure that there would be access to the store, which there will be. VDH will require wastewater capacity assessment. We've got that as one of the conditions that they meet those. And planning department said that we've notified Sprouse that they'll have to meet the VDOT conditions for low volume commercial insurance property, which it appears to meet already, but VDOT will have to confirm that. So the planning commission held a public hearing, duly advertised public hearing on April 8th for this SUP. And action was deferred because a community meeting had not occurred. So community meeting was held roughly 2 weeks after, on April 23rd. And we had about 14 members of the public come. It was held at the Lakeland Shelter Fire Station, and there were some concerns voiced. People were concerned about firearms. Because he does sells firearms, be shooting with firearms on the property. Other concerns, most concerns had to do with traffic and safety of the road there. There had been some accidents on the road, not many though. 7 years, according to the data that I got from VDOT and the vision of vehicles. Next slide, please, Aaron.
Yep, and the planning
Oh yeah, the
commission.
planning commission ultimately recommended approval 4-1, and it's May 13th. That's just a shot from the VDOT's crash map using DMV's data. And you can see there for a 7-year period, 2017 to 2025, 8-year period roughly. There were 2 incidents right at the intersection. That was it. The gray indicates that was property damage, and the yellow was visible injury. When you can delve into the data a little further, and from somebody falling too close, apparently. So we've got 9 conditions that we recommended. I'm just gonna read these quickly, the first 6 anyway. The SUP will be abandoned and deemed revoked if the proposed use has been discontinued for a period of 2 years. All outdoor artificial illuminating devices shall conform with applicable codes and ordinances. The store shall operate Monday through Saturday from 9 to 5. There shall be no shooting of firearms on the site. The applicant work VDH is needed in order to obtain and require any required permits, and the entrance shall conform to VDOT low volume commercial entrance standards. The other 3 are generic.
Question? Real quick. So you're telling, what you just read to me, if I got it correctly, is before with the music studio, the traffic, additional traffic was 25 to 30 vehicles a day.
A day.
And now we're talking about 5 to 25
5 to 20.
and just replacing one SUP with another SUP.
Did the previous SUP have the 5-year validity clause?
It did not.
What was the reason for including that in this? Or suggesting that it be included as a condition?
Some planning commissioners were worried that what would happen if the applicant stopped using the store, would still be used could still be used, which it could not with the SUP. So we've replaced that validity with a 2-year period. So if it would be deemed abandoned after 2 years, the SUP would automatically be revoked.
So what's the point of having the 5-year if after a 2-year, if it's abandoned, then it would be revoked? I'm just, do we have, and are there any other SUPs that are operating like stores or things like that have this 5-year? I know that's a new state code.
So the ability to add the period of validity was not added to the state code until July 1st of 2024. So that's why I don't know if we've had any SUPs since that point where he could have added the period of validity.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. I knew it was a new code, so I didn't know if it applied. So this would be kind of a maiden look at this. What was the rationale? Was there a rationale? I mean,
so what we're proposing now, instead of a 5-year period of validity, replacing that with
so
it's
you are
not used for 2 years. So if he never starts to use, or if it's abandoned for 2 years, then it's automatically revoked. Because right now, the only way it can be revoked is to come back before the board, and the board has to vote on it.
Okay.
We're going to start looking at adding that condition, so then doesn't have to come back to the board.
Okay, so I was at the planning commission. Obviously, the last week the 5-year validity thing came up, and I guess I misunderstood that the recommendation now, since it has come, because the planning commission's recommended approval had that in there.
Correct.
What is now being recommended by staff, correct, is that we strike that and then include the 2-year piece.
Correct.
Okay.
I'm wondering if the 5-year thing had something to do with what we talked about down on Route 6. Didn't that have a 5-year comeback clause? The trailer. Oh, I see Mr. Fortune.
I can take that one. You're referring to the SUP Park property.
Right.
The board did approve an amendment to that to establish a 5-year period of validity.
Right.
That was for a caretaker's residence and,
Okay.
but yeah, that was.
I was just wondering if that might be where the 5-year thing came.
Is this the Archer store that's on 250?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So can you all speak to some of the concerns brought up in my 2 cents and so on were about public hearing or community meeting and about notification, who all got notification and who didn't. So one, if you could speak to what our policies are as a county, and 2, if we met those and or surpassed them.
Yeah, regarding the advertisement piece, I mean, certainly, the county had met all advertising requirements. It was, published well in advance of the public hearings. It was published, twice in the paper of general circulation. So we met that. Regarding going back to the community meeting, for instance, I mean, so a community meeting is not required under Virginia code or county code. There's been times that it's been recommended depending upon what it is from a staff or county standpoint. Again, this one, when it came forward to the planning commission saw they've been wanting some community meetings on some of the things that have come forward. And since this one hadn't had a community meeting, they requested one. And again, from that, generally staff doesn't, really, usually the applicant does that, but because the planning commission kind of, pushed that one forward. Staff assisted on that one. And so we notified a 1 mile radius around the subject parcel, notifying those individuals in a 1 mile radius. So again, that is far more than we generally have to do from a public hearing. From a public hearing, we only have to notify adjoining property owners around the property. And again, when we did the public hearing, we did that as well. So,
Was a signpost though?
yeah.
Do we know how many letters were sent out? Because that was one of the questions.
Is it 140?
How many?
It was 100.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the subdivision's in behind it. I knew that would be a bunch.
This is for the public hearing or the community meeting?
This is for the community meeting.
Now,
Again, the public hearing, we only had to do for the adjoining property
That was
owners.
4.
That was 4, because there's 4 adjoining property owners, but for the community meeting, the planning commission said, we want you to send it out to a 1 mile radius. So we did that. It was over 100.
to clarify, it got brought up in, I believe it was April, it got deferred. All right, because Mr. Sprouse had not held a community meeting.
Yep.
And he's not required to do so when he applies. Correct. And if he does, it's his decision. Now, when it was deferred which the rationale from the planning commission was that he had not had a community meeting. When it was deferred, could he have not had a community meeting if he had not wanted to have a community meeting and then it come back before the planning
It
commission?
was his decision.
Okay, so he decided.
But he agreed to have the community.
Correct. Okay. And so when that community meeting was set, the onus of notifying the 1 mile radius, that was just simply off of a recommendation by the planning commission. And if that recommendation hadn't been made when there's a community meeting, whose responsibility is it, the applicant or the county's, to send notification of a community meeting?
Applicant.
Okay. And so they can, and the state requires them to do anything as far as?
No,
It's just the planning department.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand. I'm just making sure.
Yeah, we, like I said, again, generally, if there's a community meeting before, that kind of falls on the applicant because the planning commission made the recommendation. County staff kind of led the charge on that and again, sent the letters out and.
So it's safe to say it's an anomaly for the county itself to stage a community meeting
Yes.
over an SUP.
Yes, we will assist or
Yeah.
we'll help find a location, but we will provide addresses and parcels of people to be contacted.
Yeah.
But we're usually not the one doing the work.
An example would be the Vaughn property up on 15. When they wanted to get that passed and they first had a community meeting in the Morris room. And whoever wanted to show up, showed up and asked whatever questions there were to be asked. But it was all on Vaughn to quarterback that. Create a quarterback.
The other changes made to the state code last year. Previously, it said you have to have a descriptive notice of the SUP, and they changed the language to notice. So basically, what we provided as the notice met the state code. When we say specialty retail store, because we stated the tax map number, we stated the property address, we stated the voting district, all of that. Met all the requirements of the state code.
And again, during the plan, the meeting that it was deferred and then the media came back up. I mean, what the intended use was fully discussed.
Yeah.
I know there was some concerns about safety of what was, with ammunition and firearms and the archery range and stuff like that. And, I know some of the planning commissioners asked some very specific questions about that, and that was fully discussed in open session in those open meetings. Great.
And the back to the property owners that surround, we not only did that, but you said then contacted it, sent something to everybody within a mile outside
Mile
of
radius.
radius.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, 190, that's a lot of letters.
Any more questions or thoughts for staff? All right, thank you. The applicant like to come to the podium? Anything you'd like to say? Hello?
So,
Anything you got? You want to say?
speech or,
No, that name first, just so everybody knows.
my name is Brett Sprouse.
Okay.
I'm the owner of High Tech Outdoors.
Is there anything you want to add? That's all I'm just looking to see.
I guess for people living around the area, I'm a lifelong archery and hunter and outdoorsman. Safety is at utmost high on my list. It's just part of who I am. And if you're a shooter or a hunter, you understand what I mean. But no problems. You won't hear a thing out of me.
Okay. Any questions for him or?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll open it up to the board.
Public hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry, public hearing. Okay. All right, anybody wishing to address the board, please do so and keep 5 minutes directed to them. Yes.
Don Rayner, 3531 Union Mills Road, and, this is a rural county. And most of us, many of us, hunt, fish, do other outdoor activities. And right now, because I didn't even know Mr. Sprouse's business existed in Albemarle County, but most of us are going to Ashland and Augusta County to buy our supplies right now. And why wouldn't we want this in Fluvanna County? It seems like there are so many people say, let's keep the county rural. Well, if you want to keep it rural, then let's take advantage of it. And so if he is granted this special use permit, then I plan on visiting his establishment and doing business with him, because I can drive 2 miles down the road and get my supplies a whole lot easier than I can driving to Ashland and back. So I hope y'all look at that from a tax standpoint too, that, this is an ongoing business, and hopefully it will continue to grow. And I think it'd be a great problem to have if it came back and said, well, I've got 100 cars coming in a day, and I want to move my business to a larger facility. But everybody's got to start somewhere. So hope y'all see it in it to improve the man's request and granting the special use permit.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Patty Rayner, 3531 Union Mills Road. I would like to echo that same sentiment. We live very close to where that business will be, and we look forward to actually going in and purchasing equipment and ammunition and stuff too, because this is a rural county, but we need business and we need these things available to the people in this county. And I sure hope we can get a parts store over here really soon too, because you know what? There's 3 at Zions Crossroads, but I know that you guys are gonna think about that. But yes, wonderful. Please think about, making that approval for this gentleman to have that business there. That would be a great asset to the county.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak? Seeing none, we will now bring it back to the board.
Seems pretty straightforward to me.
Yeah, for me, a few things. Oh, yeah. As Brett was speaking, I happened to look over to my archery cap. I did not bring that to promote this business, but I'm a customer, and I have sighted in my bow, and it was basically a store, the container thing, right?
And it's something we do.
Yeah.
It's just
It was an enclosed deal, and everything was safety. As far as traffic, it's a destination. It's not somebody who just happens to be passing by and goes, wow, I'm gonna go buy archery stuff.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Not much stuff.
And I understand concerns from the public, something that's retail being out in an A1 area, while it is a small business that would have less traffic than what's been in that building currently. That's moving into an existing building. That's moving from Albemarle, where they pay taxes, to Fluvanna, where they pay taxes. And sometimes when you're in there, just to give people scope of the business, sometimes it's more of with all full respect, it can be as much of a social club for four people hanging around talking about who shot what as it is, buying equipment. And it's almost like a reason to go in there and find out what's happened. So I would normally say retail should go in a retail environment. The building's there, SUP's been there, it's less traffic than what it was before. It's a great asset to our community.
And I will just promise you one thing. I know when people hear the word weapon, they think of noise. You will not hear a bow and arrow outside of that building. It will not make that much noise because all it's gonna make is about like that. So if nobody else has anything to say, I move that the Board of Supervisors approve SUP 2501, a special use permit request in the A1 Agricultural General District to operate a specialty retail store on a 7-acre parcel located at 1474 North Boston Road, also known as tax map parcel 10-A-60A, subject to the conditions as described in the staff report.
Could
Second.
you add with the amendment to condition 1 as presented?
With the addition of, say it again.
With the amendment.
With
to
the
condition
amendment
1
to
as presented.
condition 1 as stated.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Sheridan, seconded by Mr. Goode, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, 5-0. All right. Amen. Moving on to item F, SUP 2502, Seven Islands Riverfront Campsites. Mr. Fortune.
Good evening. So we have a special use permit request from a Mr. Spessard to operate a primitive campsite in A1 Agricultural District under section 22-4-2.2 of the county code. It would have 2 campsites on 6 acres of a parcel that totals approximately 80 acres. The parcel is tax map 57-A-34. We have a bit of a unique situation. The parcel itself is located in Fluvanna County. It's on the James River. But given its proximity on the south side of the river, vehicular access is actually from Buckingham County, specifically Route 652 Bridgeport Road. The subject property is located in the Rural Preservation Area and in the Fork Union Magisterial District. There's the general location. See the star down where Eric has the arrow. And then here's the parcel. It's kind of hard to see on the slide there, but just south of that is Route 652 Bridgeport Road, right below where it says Buckingham County, right where Eric has the arrow. I will point out that, well, actually, I'll discuss this later, but the emergency response for fire and rescue is provided to that parcel by the Aronia Fire and Rescue Department of Buckingham County. So again, applicants proposing 2 primitive campsites. Each site will consist of a picnic area and fire pit, nothing else. Applicant might place porta-johns on the property, but has no buildings planned otherwise. Virginia Department of Forestry holds a conservation easement on the property, which restricts what can be done. They are aware of this proposed use and have no objections. Again, property is accessed by vehicle from Buckingham County. Response from the Buckingham County Sheriff's Office and the Aronia Volunteer Fire Department, which serves the northern part of Buckingham County. County staff did visit the site on morning March 18th, placed some test 911 calls just to see where the calls would go from each of the campsites. In each case, the call did go to Buckingham County Emergency Dispatch. This is a sketch. Now you notice that initially they had 3 sites proposed. They're actually now proposing 2. And I can, Mr. Spessard can answer any questions on the change there, but that's a sketch of what they would do. So the technical review committee did review the application and had some comments. Again, Department of Forestry had no issues. They have an issue with a porta-john. However, anything more permanent would require Department of Forestry approval, and they don't allow anything to be built within 100 feet of the riparian buffer. If there were to be movable bathrooms, like a larger trailer bathroom that requires water, they would need to coordinate with the Department of Forestry and the Virginia Department of Health. The deed for the property has a cultural resource protection area that the applicant will need to avoid. Again, if they have 3 more campsites, they would need a permit from VDH, but in this case, they're proposing 2. Again, Buckingham County had no concerns. We actually worked with them and coordinated with them throughout the process. They only had 2 suggestions. One was via a sign put up at the campsite instructing campers to give the address for the owner. which would be 9337 Bridgeport Road if they have to call 911. And then also signage at the entrance to make it easier for emergency personnel to find the site. And those were the really only suggestions on this. So recommended conditions, applicant again, work with Department of Health and Department of Forestry as needed on permits, compliance with requirements of the conservation easement and cultural resource protection area. They'll maintain the site in a neat and orderly manner so that the visual appearance for both the James River and adjacent properties is acceptable to county officials. You can see the site. Well, let me rephrase. When I was at the site, you can actually see across the river. So it is visible from parcels across the river. The applicant will comply with the county's noise ordinance. The county reserves the right to inspect the business for compliance with conditions at any moment. And again, under section 22-17-4 F2, the board does reserve the right or have the authority to revoke the SUP if they find that the property owner substantially breached conditions. Again, Planning Commission held a public hearing April 8th. Commission voted 5-0 to recommend approval. And I'll take any questions, and Mr. and Mrs. Spessard are here to take any questions you may have.
I have a question. So with the Porta Johns being down there, will there be provisions made to remove them during heavy rainfall events upstream, which may cause flooding? Or are they going to be in a location where it wouldn't flood?
Could you walk over, please, Mr. Spessard? Oh, Mr. Spessard, take that one.
So if we have camping down by the river's edge, when there's heavy,
Hold on, Tim, let him get over to the thing.
when there's heavy rainfall, and it doesn't need to be here, it can be over in the valley, it can be north of Charlottesville. The tributaries and streams that feed into the James will cause the James to rise. And it won't happen when the storms happen. It happens hours later. If the Porta Johns are in an area that's in the floodplain or in a 10-year flood area, are there provisions to remove them before major storm events so they don't wash down river?
Yes, sir. If we did, we're not planning on using Porta Johns, but
Okay.
if we do, occasionally we'll get larger parties that will rent one. And
Yeah.
yes, if a flood were to come, I would get it off.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
That was my only concern. Not that it's a major sewage problem because they're relatively small, but I don't want them washing downstream and then you incur costs. And
Yes,
of
sir.
course, people always assume the worst. I just wanted to make sure that that had been thought about.
Other thoughts and questions?
The application says 3. I know you originally had 3 when you presented on the planning commission. So if this is approved, can they do one more if they want to do one more?
So right now, the conditions proposed do not limit the number, but it was advertised with 3.
So that's my concern is that, I mean, they're asking for 2 and, you
But
know,
right now, there's not, if you wanted to add a condition limiting it to 2 sites.
that was my next question was, does the conditions list the amount of sites it's allowed to have? I mean, 6 acres, you can only do so much, but my thought would be if they want to go beyond what they're specifically asking for in the special use permit, that maybe they would need to come back and say, I mean, maybe I'm overthinking it.
Wasn't it some, if you go 3, they have to go to another.
They have to go through that,
That's correct.
to the health department.
The health department.
That's the reason we lowered it to 2 was, well, one reason, that is because the health department requires more if we do 3. So we just chose to go ahead and do 2. And then the other reason is one of the sites that we have, site 1, we have a whole lot of trouble with flooding, and mosquitoes. So we just decided to eliminate that site and have the 2 that were in a little higher area.
How many realistically, if you wanted to, could you put on the 6 acre? Because it's a 6 acre piece on 80, right?
Well, we just guess at that acreage. It's actually an 80-acre parcel.
Yeah.
That we have 3 sites on and they're approximately 2 acres each.
So does the special use permit apply to, hold on, I got,
To the entire parcel? Or
so the entire parcel or just the 6 acres? Because
Just the 6 acres.
just the 6 acres. So how many, so
They took one out.
No, we're down to 2.
Right, well, I'm saying, but 4 acres, 2 acre sites.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, that's.
but is it a section?
It's a part of the 80
Right.
parcel. Is that?
Yeah, but it wouldn't go down to 4. It's still they still can build as many as they want on 6. So conceivably, how many more could, my only concern would be, and I'd have more concerns with this if it were the whole 80 acres would be that you're saying you're building 2. you're saying you're building two, and then all of a sudden people out there, you end up going to 10, 12. At some point, you want to go through the Department of Health, business is great. And all of a sudden, you know, there's something a lot larger than what was originally approved. Yeah. So, yeah, I hear you.
So the way it was advertised was 6 acres, 3 campsites on 6 acres. So that's what was originally proposed, what was advertised.
So why wouldn't we put that in the conditions?
You could have that in the condition saying that 2 campsites may be utilized on 6 acres of the
Or
property.
just say 3 if they ever want to go to 3, since the original was 3. Yeah, that's my thing. Yeah, I mean, if they go to VDH, I mean, my only concern is that, again, I don't think this is the case here. It's more of a principle for me at this point. But if what an applicant, and I'm not, again, I'm trying not to point this directly at you guys. I'm looking at this more holistically. If an applicant saying, this is what I want to do, it seems to me that would be in the conditions, and that if they wanted to go beyond what was applied for, they would come back before the board and be able to say, hey, this is why we want to do more. I guess for me, it would be a principle. I don't know if anybody else.
We live on the
Yeah.
land and we want to keep it
Yeah.
quiet. We want to keep the rural heritage and
Yeah.
family atmosphere. We're not looking for any expansion. Just a small thing to pay the tax.
And if it were to change hands, the SUP would change hands with the owner, correct? So if an owner ever wanted to do a lot more than what these folks want to do, they could technically do it without the conditions that are there now, without
They'd
having.
have to come back if they want to do more than 3 sites, because that's what was advertised. They'd have to come back to the board.
They're gonna sell.
They have to come back for a amendment.
Oh,
And you're also limited on the land you can use, if I remember correctly, because of cultural resources. I'm guessing you got Indian graveyards or burial grounds or something of that nature on there.
Yeah, it's sort of a vague rule, but yes, sir, there are historic burial grounds on my farm, and they're very hush hush about the rules and regulations of that, but it is something that needs to be protected.
Yes, sir.
I just want to clarify. I thought you said that if it wasn't in the conditions, that they technically could do more than what's advertised.
Well, I mean, it would be better if it was originally, I think the plan commission, it was in the conditions. Now it's not in the conditions, the limit on the number of sites.
Staff report.
Yeah, at least staff where I'm pulling up on.
It's staff.
I believe the plan commission, there was a condition that limited to 3 sites,
That's where
But- but now I don't see this.
That's what the state also.
It's advertised for that.
Yes, but I think it'd make sense to have a condition that says 3 sites. That's the way it was.
If we put that in there as a
Presented by
condition, that just means if you want to do more, you just gotta come back and talk to us.
Or if somebody bought it from you
Yeah,
at some point.
if
I'm
they-
not concerned about you guys. It's,
Sure.
thinking out more long-term.
The other advantage of.
He's actually thinking about Woodstock.
Most people are not to look at the advertising, like
guys.
staff's not to look at the advertisement, they're gonna look at the conditions. So it'd make more sense for the restriction to be within the condition.
That's what I would
Yeah,
think.
so and that's the way it was. It's presented in one version, but not, so
All right.
I'm not sure what version you were looking.
All right.
That was in the.
I only have one more question, but that's what these were county staff.
All right, any other questions for them? No? Thank you all.
Thanks, folks. Appreciate it.
Well, the only question I have is going back to Fred and I had a discussion about this one time, and the southern boundary of Fluvanna County, from what I've heard, is the high water mark on the south bank. Not the water level on the south bank, the high water from where the floods have been. So everything south of the river that is flooded is actually Fluvanna County. And so that's how we ended up having this piece of land on that side of the river, correct? Interesting.
Yeah, I think that's correct. When I received this SUP application, I was wondering why we got it, because I thought it was Buckingham County, but then when I took a closer look, no, it's actually in Fluvanna County. And I believe there are other islands in the river that fall under that classification too.
Yeah, like I said, that's the one thing I'm asking is about, I think we're the high water mark, and I was told, no, we weren't, but I think this is showing us that we must be.
I'd have to look at her.
Because historically, they considered my low grounds an island.
Oh, okay.
There's a larger channel there, and then all the islands were recognized.
Correct.
That's.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, we're gonna open up to public comment. Anybody wishing to speak, please keep to 5 minutes on topic and directed to the board.
My name's Mike Callahan. I own the other Fluvanna piece of the south side of the James River. I've known Mike for 24 years. I didn't know if he'd have any support here or any negative folks speaking on his behalf, but I can tell you he's a great steward of the land. People camp up and down the river all the time without permission, and they camp anyway. This is somebody who, after everyone would leave, he would go by and make sure there's no trash in the campsite. He'd be a great steward of the land. So I just wanted to be here to support him.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing.
I will just add, one of my favorite drives is to go across the bridge at Bremo with the kids. Take Bridgeport over and then go through Scottsville and come home. It's a beautiful drive if you've never done
All right, any other discussion? Anybody make a motion?
I move that the Board of Supervisors approve SUP 2502, a special use permit request in the A1 Agricultural General District to operate a primitive campground under section 22-4-2.2 with 3 campsites on 6 acres of parcel totaling 80 plus minus acres and known as tax map 57A34 with the conditions as described in the staff report to add. Do we need to add a condition or was?
If you want to add a condition that it's limited to 3 campsites.
It's limited to 3 campsites with the addition of a condition that limits to 3 campsites on the 6 acres.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Goode, made second by Mr. Hodge, all in favor?
Aye.
Well, because it's not in the conditions that were presented in the staff report.
So.
Well, the problem is it says with the conditions as described.
In the staff
And
report.
the staff report does not have that as a condition.
It can't hurt.
I don't, but you're just concerned that it's overly restricted.
Well, basically, future
Chair
staff
votes
would
aye,
have to
passes
look at the
5-3.
motion to understand the restriction. So future staff usually looks at the conditions. You would have to look at the motion to see it's restricted to 3 campsites. So
Almost just codify.
that's the advantage of it being in the conditions. This makes it easier for staff 20 years from now.
And this doesn't double negative.
Usually we look at the minutes, but
All right, moving on to item G, public hearing to enact County Code 20-13-1, codify that there shall be.
Thank you.
Biennial reassessment. Mr. Whitten.
sorry, I gotta let me pull that up. It was a planning drive. Okay. So Virginia Code Section 58.1-3253 authorizes the board to provide for biennial reassessments and equalization of assessments in the county. So all real estate is assessed as of January 1st. The county started biennial reassessments in 2013. And what this amendment would do is it would codify the practice been doing for the last 12 years. So the proposed code language would enact section 20-13-1 and state pursuant to section 58.1, 3253 of the code, there shall be a biennial assessment, reassessment, equalization of all assessments of all real estate in the county, such real estate to be assessed as of January 1st. So if the board decided to change the assessment interval in the future, counties can go up to 6 years, or they could go down to as more frequently as 1 year, and the code section could be amended. So the public hearing was properly advertised. The ordinance would be effective immediately. The next reassessment would happen, go into effect January 1st, 2027, but the field work would happen throughout 2026 and into this year as well. But yeah, to answer your questions.
Do we have the luxury of changing this anytime we want? So in other words, let's say a month from now, we said we want to bring in our own staff and start doing it every year, blah, blah, blah. We have that.
Yeah, we just have
Yes,
to.
yeah, you spend the
Yeah.
public hearing. If
Yeah.
you want to do it in-house and do it annually,
Gotcha.
you would just amend this and so localities that have an in-house assessor, it's reflected in the same section of their county code. And it talks about the creation of the office, if it's under the commissioner of revenue or under the county administrator. It's all.
And because that was gonna be my next question. Do we have any idea how many people we'd be talking about if we were to do our own assessing staff? assessments.
Yeah, I mean, I think we were talking 3 to 4.
3 to 4, so we're talking roughly 400,000, 350.
Yeah, I mean, just if you're just
Okay.
talking just personnel costs alone.
Correct. Well, yeah, because they need vehicles.
Yeah, they're gonna
Stuff like
need
that.
vehicles, they're gonna need computers, they're gonna need software, they're gonna need supplies.
Well, the only reason I bring that up is that like, how much do we make in our utilities taxes in a year?
Oh, you talking about like public
Dominion,
utilities?
Tenaska, CVEC.
Um.
Am I going down a rabbit hole?
No, I mean,
I was wondering if that's within our scope of what we should be.
I mean,
Okay.
I think the reasoning for your question is, will there be a point where it makes sense to have assessors doing annual assessments? So we are always keeping our public utilities right around 100%. So we're not losing revenue.
I suggest.
Well, we could do that another time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The public hearings.
Yeah. Well,
We just have to make a decision by the end of the year about in-house versus RFP. But
And
we can
again-
always change this
Yeah.
ordinance a month from now, 2 months from now,
Okay.
if we want to do it in-house or if we want to change it annual.
Or, I mean, again, once we put out the RFP and we get the prices back and we see where it comes back, we may have a different thought at that point.
Yeah.
But the good thing is, I think we found out that there's more than one reassessment firm out there still.
There is, there's a firm, the 2 prior localities I worked in, different firms working in each locality.
Yeah.
So I know there's at least 2
Yeah.
that we can get bids from.
okay.
Well, let's close that part of it by saying Mr. Sheridan and I have each individually talked with the other Mr. Sheridan. And there's some things that probably we should talk about with staff about potential benefits.
Yep.
All right, we will open it up to public hearing. Anybody wishing to speak, please keep it to 5 minutes on topic and direct it to the board.
Don Renner, 3531 Union Mills, and our friends in Louisa have their own in-house staff and have done so for the last 70 to 100 years. And they're lowering their taxes. So maybe something from a reassessment standpoint, if these companies are going to charge us the RFP process $1 million to do it, then it would be prudent to come back and look at the cost of either getting Louisa to do ours or hiring a and maybe these people are getting out of business because it's not profitable to everything you have to do, but I don't know why people think they have to go on site with all the information that's available online these days. I mean, through all the GIS systems, through all the mapping systems that exist from satellites, you pretty damn much know what's out there and where the boundaries are. So that doesn't change a whole lot unless you got an earthquake or flood. So please keep that. Thank you.
Patty Rayner, 3531 Union Mills Road, and I don't think we should be reassessing all the properties every 2 years. And if we are, I think it should be done by the realtors, because the realtors have the most accurate information. I don't think we should I think it's like the fox in the hen house. If we are using and hiring people that are going to be working out of the commissioner's office, because I already don't feel very comfortable with the tax situation and the land use. So I think if it's going to be assessed, we should be hiring realtors who deal in the real property values every day. But it is true that we're spending a huge amount of money to reassess these properties, but they're still not being assessed properly or fairly. So again, I disagree with the 2 years. I disagree with the in-house. I disagree with the fact that we are not ensuring accurate information, and that we should be reaching out to the people who have that accurate information. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak? Seeing none from the other two people in the room. We'll bring it back to board conversation. Anybody questions, comment?
I mean, I don't think what we do here closes a conversation. It closes a cap. I mean, I think for the purpose of having something in place while we continue to have conversations, just move forward.
And once again, we went to this process because previously to then, we had not reassessed for 6 years. And that's when we had a 30-cent increase in the tax rate for the equalized rate. And that's why we decided on 2 years rather than 6, because the market does any kind of fluctuation. If you go 6 years, it's huge.
I move the Board of Supervisors approve the amendments to the county code to enact subsection 20-13-1 to codify that there shall be a biennial assessment, reassessment, and equalization of assessments of all real estate in the county, such real estate to be assessed as of January 1st.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Hodge, seconded by Mr. Sheridan, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, 5-0. Moving on to the consent agenda. Anybody? Anything? Seeing none.
Second.
Oh, you seconded. I'm sorry. Mr. O'Brien made a motion, seconded by Mr. Hodge. I didn't pick up that that's what he said. Somehow I didn't hear him and he's sitting beside me. Aye. Motion made by Mr. O'Brien, seconded by Mr. Hodge. All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. 5-0. Yeah. Unfinished business. New business.
Yes, just the one item that I brought up again, because the board approved the special use permit for 2501 for the spouse property, just to clarify and just to make things perfectly clear on there, that there's a motion, a revocation of special use permit 0604, which was the previous SUP.
We're just removing the previous SUP.
I move the board's movement in accordance with county code section 22-17-4F. Revoke special use permit SUP 0604 for a music and dance studio.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. O'Brien, seconded by Mr. Goode, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, pass 5-0. By
Now
the way,
to,
if you ever wondered what ADHD looks like, that's it.
No, that's it.
Tony,
No, I meant.
You have something to
more
read.
Me, to him of that. So I've got another quick item. A citizen called me today about that their personal property tax on their business, which is basically like a desk and a computer or something, came out to be a dollar and something. And the person said, why are you going to the expense of sending me a bill for $1.50 or whatever it is? Like, it goes to a conversation we recently had about dog licenses. There's some comparisons. And first of all, that's up to us, not the commissioner, right?
no.
Some localities have language if the bill is less than $10 that, a bill won't be sent out. So I'd have to look at our code if we have that minimum, but I know some localities have that language.
But we would establish that, not the commissioner?
Usually it's in the ordinance established by the board, like a certain dollar amount of bill is not sent out.
Interestingly enough, the 10 was exactly the number I had in mind. Why don't we just,
We can look at doing that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you were gonna say something.
No, I was just gonna say, I don't believe we have any minimum, because I know we've had some conversations, even, on some other things about, this kind of goes back to the dog tags. I mean,
Yeah.
spending $4. I mean, so if someone got a bill for $1.50, I mean, that kind of even the time and effort, the staff time to collect and mail.
Damn.
Yeah.
Is that a separate bill for the dog's tax or just including that?
No, we were just talking
Yeah,
that.
separate item.
Yeah, separate item. Yeah.
I got one for a laptop for the driver's ed business for like $1.20.
So I'm just saying, let's look at what it takes and put a floor of $10. Anything under that.
Makes sense.
Do we have software that would tell us that, like, that we pick those out? Okay.
I mean, you basically report
Yeah.
the year where you purchased
Right.
the year at that. So.
We can talk to the commissioner and treasurer, see, assume they're okay with it.
East
when that was
Western
built.
unit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
Any other new business? All right, gonna open up to the second round of public comments. Anybody wish to speak, please keep it to 5 minutes and focus to the board. Seeing none,
Chair, that county board of supervisors, I'm letting you propose me. Section 2.2-3711. 2.2-3711, section 2.2-3711, 8. As amended for the purpose of discussing employees of the sheriff's office personnel. Investment of funds, contracting the grant on the water and sewer, and this crossroads, contracting the grant on the Fort Union sanitaries. Legal matters, contract user grant on the water, sewer, crossroads to contract user grant with Fort Union sanitary district. And the personnel policy.
second. Motion made by Mr. O'Brien, seconded by Mr. Sheridan. All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, 5-0.
And we'll go to the
Thank you. What else?
go to the Morris room for closed session.
This not the point of.
Okay.
Please not make the motion.
Chair, I move the Fluvanna County Board of Supervisors. I move closing of the adjourned, the Fluvanna County Board of Supervisors can move again open session, be resolved, the Board of Supervisors does hereby certify the investigation. One, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under section 2.2-3711A of the Code of Virginia 1950 as amended. And two, only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered in the meeting.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. O'Brien, second by Mr. Sheridan. Mr. Hodge.
Aye.
Mr. Goode.
Aye.
Mr. Sheridan.
Aye.
Mr. O'Brien.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. 5-0.
There you go, motion.
And that's where we want to go, right?
Up to.
I move that the Fluvanna County Board of Supervisors increase the Zion notch.
Zion 3 notch.
Zion 3 notch current estimate for sanitary sewer up to $316,655.
Second.
Discussion, should it say not to exceed that? Or
I
up
think you
to?
said up to, right?
Up to.
I think that should be fine. Up. Yeah, up to. That's the same thing. It's not to exceed.
What not to exceed.
Okay. I'm sorry, who made the motion?
Yeah.
And you second. Motion made by Mr. Hodge, second by Mr. Sheridan, all in favor.
Aye.
Motion adjourned.
I couldn't see your mouth.
I said aye, sorry.
Sweater was over.
Yeah, aye.
Chair votes aye, 5-0.
Discussion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Sheridan, second by Mr. Goode, all in favor.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Each two.
Thank you.